Just after U.S. President Joe Biden finally visited the U.S.-Mexico border, New York's Mayor Eric Adams also paid a visit to a border city where he declared that there is no room for migrants in New York. The announcement comes as over 40,000 illegal migrants have made their way to the city since last year alone. Mayor Eric Adams plans to be in Washington, D.C. to bring up the issue at the United States Conference of Mayors. Eric Adams, a Democrat, also criticized the Biden administration on the issue. Take a listen.
Our cities are being undermined, and we don't deserve this. Migrants don't deserve this, and the people who live in the cities don't deserve this. We expect more from our national leaders to address this issue in a real way.
Adams' visit to the border city of El Paso comes after he said that migrant influx into New York could cost the city as much as $2 billion, as the city is already facing a major budget shortfall. As mentioned, more than 40,000 migrants arrived or traveled to New York's 5 boroughs since last year. This has caused a housing crisis in New York and a worsening homeless crisis in the city as well. In recent months, the Republican governors of Florida and Texas have sent migrants seeking asylum in the United States to cities run by Democrats that include New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. in a bid to raise awareness on the issue. Some say the migrant issue has now become increasingly politicized as a constant tussle between the Democrats and Republicans. For more on this, we are joined by Adele Nazarian. She is a media fellow at the Gold Institute for International Strategy, and she's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Adele, lovely to have you on WION. So some say that it's a good thing that Mayor Eric Adams is traveling to the border and trying to bring national attention to a crisis that has been ongoing since the Biden administration took over. But others are saying there isn't much he can do unless the Biden administration actually steps in and does something.
Thank you so much for having me on. And you're absolutely correct. This is a FEMA issue. It is a federal issue in many regards, but it's also up to states to take responsibility and to be able to push back against pressures from their Democratic counterparts who are mostly pushing for this, and Republican. There are some, of course, in the ranks. But it is unfortunate this has been a politicized issue. I think what we're noticing here is a trend usually starts in Europe and then it makes its way over to the U.S. And if you take, for example, the Syrian refugee crisis, you see that Turkey took on the most number of Syrian refugees, and they were absolutely exhausted and overwhelmed with their resources. And now what's going on is that these Syrians are being forcibly returned or told to return back to their war embattled, broken down country with no reinforcements. And so I do agree that it is a federal issue, but it is up to the federal government to also work with this at the state level to be able to share and help direct the allocation of resources and funding, and to be able to put a foot down, so to speak, figuratively, and to help solve this crisis at its roots, right? You can't put a Band-Aid over a gaping wound, so to speak. There's a much larger endemic issue going on here that has resulted in this influx of migrants who are seeking a better way of life. But there has to be some kind of a remedy to allowing for this to occur in the capacity at which it has been, and for it to become politicized in the way that it has become.
Right, exactly. And at this point, it's clear that the only beneficiaries are the cartels that are bringing these illegal migrants across the border. And it's anything but humane, what's happening at the southern border in the United States. When we say that it's being politicized, some are arguing that perhaps a few years back, there was some glimmer of hope that the Republicans and Democrats could come to the negotiating table and maybe reach an agreement on immigration. Do you think that an agreement in the United States right now and some kind of compromise is further than ever before?
That's a great question. And consensus, as you put it, is absolutely a goal. I think that's been lost over the past 2-3 administrations. But I do think that in the midst of one of the greatest political fights for both parties' futures, I have never seen this country more divided politically as it is in our current state. I don't necessarily see a consensus or agreement amongst both parties, honestly, with the upcoming 2024 presidential elections, where Republicans and Democrats are fighting more than ever before for the mantle of supremacy, so to speak. Although I will say, to your previous point, you're absolutely correct. There's been a lot of false advertising. You have these cartels, these coyotes, so to speak, who are giving false advertisements using the image of, for example, Eric Adams, and saying in ads that are misleading that the streets of New York are paved with gold, for example, and that you are going to be staying in a hotel once you arrive here. Yeah. And that's a far cry from reality. So it's really up to, I think, for the good of the nation, for the good of the people, and truly putting the American people first, for Republicans and Democrats to find a medium, so to speak, and to put their own interests for the first time in a long time secondary to what is best for the overall health of the nation and its people.
Amen. Absolutely. Adele, thank you so much for joining us on WION, and we hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.